Welcome back to the show, Dale Obrochta, the magical balloon dude. Thank you for coming on the round 2 Polycast.
Wow, I'm so happy to be here.
I'm
It's
happy to
been a
have you
while.
here. I know, it's been 3 years. Almost
That's
exactly.
it reminds me of that saying, it's just like 1999 was just a couple of years ago.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
that's 23 years ago already.
Yeah.
Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator.
That's kind of way we look at COVID and other stuff. It was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I
It
still think
wasn't.
the COVID was yesterday. For the longest time, I was trying to catch up on all these interviews since the last time we had met. And I just was scrambling for a couple years there to just keep catching up. I had to do 40 in like 1 month or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it is because in our minds everything is just like yesterday. We just did it yesterday, and then you do the mathematics. I used to joke with my mom. My mom would always say, when I was a child, I would, skate on one leg and I would skate around and do these figure eights, and I'd go, that was 50 years ago, Mom.
Yeah.
You're 60 now, and I catch myself doing the same thing when I'm talking to people, going, yeah, I used to. Well, it was 10. All right, so it was 30 years ago that I did that. It's hard to believe, with the time, how fast it's flown.
Well, and it's really exciting to talk to you again, too, because you were the first guest on the show, and I'm grateful for you getting me started on that journey. I always wanted to do interviews, but I wasn't able to really get that started. And then talking to you on Matchmaker.fm, we were able to kind of get a conversation going, and you were like, do you want to get this like actually on recorded on the call? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. We're actually going to kind of debate polymathy versus specialism, too, a little bit. I thought it was kind of funny.
Well, it was interesting because when I talked to you, you're like, yeah, I don't interview people. I'm like, what do you mean you don't interview people? Like, well, I usually just talk about I'm like, wow, that was odd. That was odd for me. And then all of a sudden, when we started doing the interview, you're like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Uh, it reminds me of the guys who used to do the Tonight Show, who had 90 minutes, like Johnny Carson had to fill. Now we're trying to fill 7 minutes of content,
Yeah.
and they're doing 90. And you had to have the stars to come out.
Well, and for those listening in, this round 2 podcast is a quicker, more rapid fire style. So we're trying to fill 30 minutes in this show. And I think we'll be able to, I'm honestly thinking we're going to go over just by a little bit, just because I know you and I are going to go at it.
Sure, go ahead. Let's go.
Well, how are you doing, first and foremost?
Doing good. Things are coming back in the entertainment world. It's kind of hard to believe because there's like 4 or 5 phases that we have, and we're finally moving through the 5th phase. And that is basically opening up the restaurants, start up the restaurant entertainment again. Schools starting now to allow entertainers back into the facilities. Libraries now wanting to have gatherings again. So all this public gathering has not only happened in little segments, but it's also because people are feeling safer. The administration is now going back to their normal thinking. Plus, once we've gotten past that, we've gotten all past budget constraints now. So, last thing we're worried about is recession hitting. But other than that, things are almost back on track to be back to where we were in about 2017, 2018. Hopefully next year we're going to be at the 2019 records.
Good. We were talking a little bit about live streaming beforehand. How is like live streaming and online digital content production combining with these live performances for you?
Well, that's the weird part. When we did COVID, we were on the air 24/7, it felt like. There was no time. You flipped the switch, you went live. Everybody had a studio in their house. Everybody had a cell phone. That's all we did was Facebook Live. Then we went YouTube Live. And then we found out we could stream to all 3 or 4 platforms at once. The in-person has taken over. We're back to in-person. The streaming is still there. But what has changed is before when I would say, yeah, I'm going to give you something for your social media site. And they'd be like, don't need anything. Now they're all like, yes, we'll put it on our Facebook. We'll put it on our YouTube. The businesses and the communities now all know about the internet. So they're taking full force of this streaming concept. Whereas 3 years ago, you gave it to them, it literally just went into the inbox, stayed in the inbox. Now it actually goes out there and it's being posted.
Do you ever record your live performances, like put a camera on a tripod and record them or live stream them there too?
I just recorded from 3 different angles. It's hard to record because when you're in a studio, you can really control the lighting and the fixtures and the sound. when you're on a live set, a lot of problems is you have standing mics, you have standing cameras. So if you walk out of the picture, you have 30 minutes of video of you performing like this. Whereas you look at the quality, you went, that can't be used anywhere but maybe CD roll or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to go from there.
So round 2 on the show, what have you been doing since then? You said something about doing the live performances. What else have you been doing?
Oh, where my life has changed. We have a new pet in the house. We actually have a parakeet. So, we didn't do the COVID dog. We didn't do the COVID cat. We actually waited to everything. No, actually, I take it back. We have COVID fish. We found out getting goldfish, a couple bluegills that are now big size. So that has changed. Other than that, not a lot has changed. I mean, business-wise, yeah, that's been the biggest change, going from fast-paced to hitting COVID to being dead back to actually planning, marketing, and moving. So that's where my world has changed, from doing nothing to doing something again and feeling like you're useful. Whereas before, sitting around that point, a lot of people were able to do things, but as an entertainer, you're literally sitting doing nothing. And I mean, you could do the side projects, but everything requires money, and you're trying to save money because you're not working. And, so it's more freedom of mind now that I've probably gained over the last 3 years actually working.
Yeah.
Because my mind cannot think about the bad things. It's got to always go positive now.
That's good. I like that mental shift.
Yeah. It like I say, it just happened. And every entertainer, as soon as we got the ability to entertain again, we're like, thank God, this feels so good again. And you just felt the love, and everything was just positive then. And we went from such a dark negative of, hey, 4th of July, we're sitting around doing nothing. And when it's supposed to be the busiest day of the year entertaining, this is kind of fun, but really in the back of our head goes, this sucks.
Yeah.
And it was a big mind shift. And that's been the biggest thing probably in the last couple of years since I've seen you, is I rode that high, hit the bottom, and now I'm back up to that mental peak again.
Well, that's amazing. I'm glad you're at the peak. I want to get started on these rapid fire questions
Sure,
here.
go ahead.
I'm not sure how quickly we'll be able to do it. What has changed in the balloon animal skills since the last time we talked?
What's changed? I've changed my philosophy on designs, the entertainment style. I'm now focused. Before I was focused on children, which I'm still focused on. That's my key thing. But I'm more focused on shows. Getting back into what I started back in 2019 was actually doing school assemblies. So this year in the fall, I'm going to be starting doing school assemblies again, which is actually a different program. It's not just balloons, but it is using more magic, juggling, art. It's called FAX program. So it deals with friendship, art, caring, trust, and sharing. So it's a totally different flavor than just me doing a normal balloon show. Yeah. So that is more me being an educational entertainer versus me just coming out and being silly for that 45 minutes.
I love that. I feel like you definitely have a teaching quality. So I think you'll blossom in that kind of environment.
As an entertainer, I've grown. I've grown because I'm a parent. That's where I've probably grown the most, because I feel like a comedian in that concept that tells the stories about, this is when I was in college. And then it jumps into, hey, this is me and my wife. And then next thing you know, you see him 20 years later and he's going, yeah, this is me as my kids. And then you see him 30 years later and goes, this is me and as a grandpa.
Yeah.
And that is where I find that my stage is, because a lot of the things, especially that in that FAX program that I teach, I talk about my kids who are now at this time 13 and 16. When I talk about them, I'm talking about stories when they're 5, 6, and 7 or 8. And I could relate these stories to the kids, because not only did I have kids at that age, but I was a parent with children that age. You spin back 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I didn't have that skill or ability because I didn't have that experience. So that's where I've noticed as an entertainer, and I've had people point this out to me. They go, you relate things from a dad's point of view. It's like, yeah, I got the bad dad jokes. I got the parenting where, don't do that. I'm a dad, behave. Where probably when I was first starting out, I wouldn't have done that due to the fact that I didn't have those skills.
Mm-hmm. You've evolved. So next question here. Given the last time we talked about the trials of learning. What have you noticed has changed in the learning world?
AI has changed me a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I use AI. I'm not a. I use technology to my advantage. I've always been the person who said, "Why recreate the wheel if the wheel's already there? How can I use it to benefit me or make my life better?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I found with AI, because I could go in there and write my mental thoughts, have it generate the message that I want to actually communicate, and then tweak it from there. So it actually helps me. It's kind of like the sounding board. So
It
I
really
give it the
is.
raw data. It throws something back.
Right.
I'm the one who processes it. Is that the actual message I want to send? And what's really cool, I just did this. I was going to send a message. I said, how would Mark Twain say this? I said, put it in the tone of Mark Twain. And I sent it. And I went, that doesn't sound like me. Put it like a balloon artist would say it. And it said it a different way. Or I could say, put it like somebody with a PhD, and you get these huge words in there. So you could really customize the message different, and it gives you a different perspective on how other people would hear that same message if you were communicating at that level.
Well, and on top of that too, you could always regenerate the response if you don't like it. It's always nice.
Yeah, that's the problem. I know the scary part about artificial intelligence is where they're going to take it. Are you going to put it into a phone that eventually learns how to walk and takes over and controls our lives? Again, as long as we have a power button to shut it off, we're okay.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Well, at the end of last year, I was kind of avoiding ChatGPT because I thought I had experience with GPT-3, at least at some points beforehand. And I was like, okay, I don't really care that much about it. But I kept having like friends of mine online say like, oh, you need to mess with it. You need to mess with it. And at the tail end of last year, like literally the last couple of days, I started playing around with it, started asking questions. I even asked it the question I always ask all my guests on the show, what is a polymath to you? And it gave me an interesting response too. But one thing sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
One thing I did actually was started fleshing out ideas for video games that I wanted to work on. And I was able to give it my information, give it my ideas, and it fleshed them out. And it kept doing that for multiple different aspects: plot, story, characters, quests, anything that I needed. It helped me flesh it out. And so for the first month of this year, I pushed everything back and like postponed content and all that jazz to focus on this game, because it was just ChatGPT inspired me to do a whole new project. That's how powerful it was.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think it is powerful, but I think it's powerful because it's a sounding board. It's actually giving you feedback. Unlike an individual, if you're married, you walk over to your spouse and you say, hey, and you bounce ideas off them. Okay. A lot of my ideas basically was I come out of the shower and I go, hey, I got an idea. That's my inspiration, is getting out of the shower. I always have one or two new ideas. It's the way my mind works, or wake up in the middle of the night and have that idea. I think ChatGPT basically is that sounding board. It gives you that feedback. And again, I use it for more rewriting content. I have asked it for specific questions, but again, sometimes it can answer, sometimes it can't. And like I say, that's the interesting part about it. It gives you that feedback that, I guess if we had to ask a person, we probably have to wait a couple days before we got the feedback.
Right.
And we get that instant feedback, which again, we're now trained for instant feedback.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of other opportunities out there. I mean, ChatGPT 4, Bard, all these other things out there. The next question here. Last time on the show, you were nerding out about cameras last time. Did you get a new one at all? Did you?
Oh, yeah, I did. I nerded out. Yes,
I knew it.
I got a EOS RP. Or EOS, what is it? I think it's LRP, LP. It's mirrorless camera. Man, I would have known. I would have brought it here. I went out and it's a mirrorless DSL camera. Okay, so it takes great photos. But on top of it, this is where I geeked out. I went out and got a 2.8 70 to 200 photo quality
Mm.
Sports quality lens. Sucker's
Mhm.
about that big. It's good 5 pounds to it.
Oh.
Yeah, the camera body is cheap compared to the lens.
Yeah, the lens is worth all the
And
money.
I have been freaking out because my two boys are in one's in baseball, one's in volleyball. And with the speed and the quality of this lens, because it is photo quality, sports quality, magazine quality, you just go click, 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 click. And then I geeked out and I got a 256 gig SIM card, which I just looked at. I was geeking out when I bought the whole thing, and I bought it, and I'm like worried about I'm going to run out. I have almost a year and a half of sports event. Now I take it anywhere between 200 and 400 photos per event for my
Mm.
kids. And so I roughly have filled up third of that 256 gig already.
That's surprising.
Uh,
How little that is actually comparatively.
it is very little. Which freaks me out because I have a couple of my shows in there. My son's, my youngest is already, he walks around and I'll look at him and go, "Did you take some photos?" Like, "Yeah, I'm up to 500 already." I'm like, "What'd you take?" He's like, "Everything," which is really great because now I'm Amazon Prime member.
Mhm.
They give me unlimited storage. So I am dropping literally for my son's volleyball game this year, which he's only had about 7 of them. I have close to 2,000 photos or over 2,000
Mm.
photos uploaded of the team. I then edit it. When I say edit it, again, these are poster size. So I just cut them down 8x10 on that single kid catching that
Mhm.
perfect spike or that perfect throw. So I've been geeking out on that.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I just loaded a Facebook because I was playing around with Photo P, making, you can tell I get excited about this stuff. Actually, like a weave in, I took the picture so it looks weaved. And yeah, it's just amazing the quality of the photos. I
Oh
just
yeah.
geek out because
Couple.
these were cool, but
Yeah.
man, those DSLs are just awesome.
Couple sub questions. Does it have an HDMI out?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so you could use that as a webcam if you wanted to.
Yes, again, yeah. I thought about doing that. I was going to hook it up today. I
Uh,
got my normal 1080. The problem is I'm going to be taking the damn thing on and off all the time
yeah.
because my kid's playing baseball till July,
Mhm.
mid-July. My other son's in it, and I'm always having the camera, always charging the camera, uploading pictures nonstop.
Right.
So yeah, that's I did buy it for that purpose too because I thought I got it after the pandemic. It was last year that I picked it up, and that was one of the things that I wanted to be able to stream with it.
Mhm.
I bought a whole new PC for that process too. So
What'd
I
you
got a
build?
whole new PC. Yeah, I upgraded equipment. Even though I wasn't working, I was upgrading equipment. Yeah, yeah. That when I got the lens, it was really funny because my wife looked at me and it came in and went, "Honey, it says it's used." And she's like, "I know you wanted a new camera set. Just exchange it and get a new lens." So I went back online and I'm looking and went, "Oh, here's the lens. This is my lens, $1,200. All right, I want, wait, here's 1,500. That's still used. 1,800,
Oh.
1995 for a brand new lens. This, I
Yeah.
think I paid 1,052. This lens is perfect."
Yes.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, the lens, like I said, I can't rave enough about the lens. I do have there's a new lens I'd like to get, but I'm not going to get it because it's
Mhm.
5K.
Oh.
Uh,
Oh.
yeah, it is
It's always the
200 to
lens.
600.
I I've seen a lot of creators like Harris Heller, Casey Neistat. They've always talked about how lenses are like their weakness, and they'll have shelves of lenses out there.
Yes, and when I started out photography when I was 13, my dad got me an AE1 camera.
Mhm.
And at that time, we bought a 35 wide angle to 200 telephoto lens.
Mhm.
That was in the 70s, and that was $800. I kept that lens for years because it was 2.8. It was beautiful. It gave you the best picture quality. So then when I got this new camera, I'm like, I'm doing the same thing. And No, no, it is like buying a car practically.
Yeah.
You really have to be in the career or a high-end photographer that really needs a lens like this.
Yeah. So next question, last one of the five rapid fire questions here. Rapid fire. I had you on the show.
Hey, you rapid fire them. I just answer them a long time.
That's fine. Honestly, that's kind of how the show was for the regular series anyway, so I'm down with it.
Right.
I had you on the show originally to debate the specialist versus polymath kind of idea. How has your opinion changed or evolved since then?
It possibly has. But I have to go back and watch what I thought about it last time because I've gotten older over the years.
Should have sent you the video before I had you on. My bad.
No, I mean, it has. We've changed the way we've learned due to the fact that social media is now much more acceptable. YouTube is much more acceptable. Do we look at somebody's PhD? We don't even know if they have a PhD, but they got 2 million followers. So what they're possibly saying is correct. Do we have fact checkers now? Yes, but we're now checking the fact checkers because we don't believe the fact checkers.
Right.
So I think we're getting in a situation where we're getting back to the ability to recognize somebody who is knowledgeable, who is skilled, who understands what they're talking about. Versus somebody who's doing the smoke and mirrors. And I think the smoke and mirrors was in the early stage of the internet where it was really easy to do smoke and mirrors. And I think now we've evolved to a situation where you're getting to people that you could tell if they really understand what they're talking about and their commitment, because we have these values now that we could check not only their social media, but what they're saying online and other ways to fact check what they're actually saying.
Yeah. Going off of that, actually, just because you nerd about cameras, I nerd about researching people and topics and learning new things. And one thing I noticed, this kind of happened a few episodes after I interviewed you, is that I had to tweak certain things about the interview process when I was starting out. I didn't know what to do exactly. I knew I wanted to do it. I knew I had a plan on how to go about it. I learned from, like Lewis House and some of the big names out there, but how I did my show was going to be different.
Right.
And so after a couple guests, I managed to make some tweaks, and how I research people is extensive. I go through everything I can find by them, whether it's a book or a blog or a YouTube channel or a LinkedIn profile or a Medium article, whatever I can find, I try to scrounge up as much information as possible. There was one guest, like number 48 or something like that, where literally I just scrolled down his Instagram for a few years, basically just going through. And one random photo, I saw him with Satya Nadella, who happened to be his hero. That was the only time I had seen out of his entire blog, his entire YouTube channel, every content he had made. That was the only time I saw him talking about his hero. So I was able to ask him a question about that. And that level of dedication to research, that's something that only happens when you're really interested in learning about something or someone.
Yeah, it's interesting that you point that out, because as an entertainer, granted, I'm not an A celebrity, B, C, or D. It's just we at least for me, I shield who my kids are, who my wife is. My wife is always referred to as the wife. The boys are the boys. The youngest are the oldest. If you looked at my entertainment, like Instagram, you see very little of them. It's just all balloons. If you go into my Facebook entertainment page, you'll see very little. You have to get into my personal site to actually see the personal stories. And even then, I'm still sheltering them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. We can go in. And for entertainers, we call it in the industry kind of the creep factor, is because I can know a lot about the customer before I even send them that email. And, my system notifies me when they've opened up the email.
Yeah.
So that means I could actually call them and they go, hey, I just got your email. Well, it meant to be that we needed to work together.
Right.
You can create these little weird creep factors, as we like to refer them, that you're not stalking the person, but in some weird aspect, you're doing, researching them to find out where can you make that connection? Where can you make that extra little tidbit of information that turns them to like you, to actually want to buy from you, or to at least continue the conversation without saying, thank you, no.
Yeah. Well, and I have a little sister too. I hold back on posting any images with me and her and that kind of thing. And you want to make sure family is kind of one of those situations where a lot of the time people don't post family unless the family is kind of public facing as well. But when it comes to like hobbies and stuff like that, a lot of times creators and people online, they don't always talk about their hobbies in their main form, whether it's a YouTube or blog or whatever podcast, but they will talk about it on social media. And so by just taking that extra step of looking at their LinkedIn or looking at their Instagram or old school Tumblr kind of thing, you can find those little details and research them and that kind of thing.
I think that may be a small generation gap, because there is a generation gap between us.
Yeah.
My kids are very accustomed with posting stuff,
Mhm.
but they're even leery of posting stuff about them, and it may be because of me, and they see how I post.
Right.
Whereas I think that is transmitted down from the parents. If they see their parents always taking pictures of food or always doing selfies and posting it, or taking pictures of family and posting it, I think kids pick up on that.
Mhm.
And I
It's
think if
interesting.
your family is not active on social media, I think the kids have a tendency to be the same way.
Hmm.
I think it's kind of like, if dad voted Democrat, I vote Democrat. Unless you got a conflict there, then, you're going to do
Like
the
mom does
opposite
the
of
other
what your
side.
parents-
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and it's interesting too that you say that because I've met people of all ages who were both sides. Like they were like, okay, I'm a poster, I'm not a poster.
Right.
I'm a person who loves being online. I love going everywhere. I mean, you're the first person I talked to on the show, and you were someone who was very nerdy about technology and different platforms. I think I sent you a link right afterwards, the talk we talked last time, and you were like, okay, I'm excited about this. I'm gonna check this
Yeah.
out. And I love doing that for people. And it's one of those things where not everyone my age would get excited about a link. You know what I mean? But you did because you were excited about the topic.
Well, again, it goes back to my life, where to get in front of a camera,
Yeah.
you had to do something bad on the news to get on the news.
Right.
Nowadays, I mean, everything's streamed. So in my generation, it was still like, hey, I'm on the news. Woo! And, and I got other friends going, oh, turn on your Facebook feed and you'll get as many people that see you on your Facebook feed that saw you on the news that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, it's changed.
Yeah. So what is next for you on your journey, Dale?
Next for my journey. Well, I got kids going into high school and college or into the trades. I don't know where my oldest is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
My career is developing where walking away certain aspects of my business into more stage shows. So it's a different environment with different communication. Taking my business in a different sense where, as a businessman, you try to, when you first start out in business, like with a podcast, you try hitting that small, narrow niche. And then at some point you realize that niche is just too narrow. And so you broaden it out. So you're trying to get that 1 million followers. And then you realize that you can't go in that many directions. And then you kind of narrow back to that niche. And that's where I'm in business, is because, again, when I started out, I wanted to do every show. I wanted to be everywhere. I wanted to do everything. And then I realized I couldn't do that. So I just focused on the entertainment aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And as the entertainer, I've now focused that there are certain jobs that are just not me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting too old for it. I don't want to stand in line for 6 hours twisting balloons that never ends. I want to be on stage. So which again broadens out from very wide to narrow again, because that's a different market, which is again a narrower market. But again, I don't want to do every stage show. I don't want to be a magician. I want to stay in the balloon. So it gets narrow again. So it's kind of like this little
hourglass.
It's a wave. It's a sonic wave. It's just a voice wave that we keep narrowing. And what we're trying to do is find that niche that keeps us going like that.
First off, what you just said there is a very multidisciplinary mindset. I will say that. Because quite literally yesterday, I was interviewing somebody and we were talking about the hourglass, where at some points your focus is going to narrow, at some points your focus is going to broaden. This year in particular is a year for me to broaden. I have a lot of different things I need to catch up on: the show, my gaming channel, my main series, my job. Like I have a lot of things I need to focus on. I can't just do one niche like I did last year, or one focus, like I said. And it's fascinating that you said the exact same thing without even realizing it. So just, up and in and out, and that's okay. Every once in a while, someone who's multidisciplinary needs to focus down, needs to narrow down, needs to simplify their endeavors. And then sometimes you need to broaden. Just really, like you said, it's a wave.
Well, it's a wave, I think, because of not only our youth at certain points where we have more skills, our youth to have the energy. And then as we grow on, we realize that we have less energy, but we still want to do more, so we work wiser. And then all of a sudden we realize, well, why am I working so hard when really this is the niche I need to be? And that's where it goes from not knowing the niche to trying to figure out where the niche is, to getting back to that niche, and then go, okay, I've mastered that niche. Should I broaden it? And then so I think that's just the way the learning curve.
Not just learning, but just like you said, energy level, aging. And one thing I mentioned to somebody ages ago on the show is that sometimes people become polymaths just by the end of their life because they've done so many different things. They didn't realize, oh, I'm actually an expert in 4 different fields, but they're 80 years old. You can become a polymath sooner if you really try, but sometimes people, I call that a serialized polymath. They did one thing right after the other over the course of their lifespan, and eventually they became one just because they just did many different things over the course of decades.
I think where it's hard is to actually quantify that, because really when you go, I had to do this back when COVID was, when I actually had to put together a resume. How do you take 20 years of doing stuff and slap it into a flat little file that needs to go through a computer, some AI trying to pick out certain words, and you're going, well, I've done that, but I don't feel it's relevant because that was done 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Or 50.
Yeah, and I just had a friend, we were talking about, I was doing a new promo video, or thinking about a promo video. And she goes, well, you've done a TEDx talk. You've been on 3 TEDx's. I'm like, yeah. She's like, it's very powerful. And I'm like, but that was done years ago already. And for me, it's history. But to her, it's like, well, that's how I kind of know you as. And that's where, as you're talking about gaining all this information, like I said, I've been doing photography since I've been 13. I have a friend who just said, can you come over and do my daughter's prom photos?
Yeah.
It's like, I'll pay you. And it's like, okay, I am a photographer. I do, I mean, if we had taken by the number of photos that I've taken within this past year, I'm almost qualified as a photographer.
Yeah.
Just because I've taken so many compared to the average person. I have a better skill. I have a better eye. But I don't look at myself as saying I'm a professional photographer, even though I've been doing photography for 30 years.
Because it's not your gig.
Yeah. It's
a hobby. It's a skill.
I think it's mentally, I haven't said it's my gig. I have the photo equipment. I could probably go out and get a job shooting a wedding.
Oh, yeah.
And probably do a halfway decent job. So, yeah, well, it's that long skill. You know?
I know that you and I could keep going on this, but let's go ahead and wrap it up since it's more of a rapid fire show. What would be a call to growth for the audience today?
Oh, the audience, keep learning. I mean, find something that you like and just expand on it. I'm always looking, again, photography is mine. I'm always clicking on something. How can I edit a photo? Can I do it on my phone? Can I do it on my computer? Is there a new AI software? And it's not to master it. It's just to look at what it's capable of doing. And do you have a feature that maybe you could play with? And it's amazing how your mind expands as you just play with these little things, because playing is learning, or learning is playing, depending on how you want to look at it. And you pick up so much more than just turning on the boob tube and looking at something. And it's just that second or two of playing that takes you down those rabbit holes of creativity. And once you're there, try it. Just try it. Because the worst scenario you're going to find is, I lost a half hour. I at least know how it's done.
Yeah.
3 hours from now, you're going to go, dude, look at what I just did, man. This is awesome. And it takes you to a whole different level. So my advice is play, practice, see if you like it, and expand on it.
Hmm. This is making me have a lot of different emotions because, like I said, you were the first guest I had on the show. You are now the 100th guest on the show.
And I want to be
400
the 200th. I want to be the
200.
200th. I'm calling dibs. 200. I'm going to do 1, 2, 4, and 5. Once we get up to 5, you know,
Then it's time to call quits. Yeah.
3, 6, 9, 12. That's 15 years from now. Okay, we'll be doing 3D
Yeah.
at that point.
Some VR. Well, and we'll definitely talk about that because I actually have a sequel series for this series in mind as well.
Cool.
So it'll be perfect. Once again, this is Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator, and Dale Obrochta on the Round 2 Polycast. Thank you for joining.
Have a great day.